too late. There he is.
Where?
There.
You silly sod!
What?
You got us all worked up!
That's the most foul, cruel and bad-tempered rodent you ever set eyes on.
You tit! I saw my arm and I was so scared.
Look,
Get stuff.
he'll do you a treat, mate.
Oh,
You
yeah?
manky Scots git.
Go on, boss, chop his head off.
Would you be willing to testify to this publicly?
I will speak the truth, my lord.
Jesus Christ!
I warned you.
I've done it again.
I warned you, but did you listen to me? Oh, no, you knew it all, didn't you?
Yeah, I told you Nostradamus just got better all of a sudden because he didn't have a single appearance in episode 10, and then all of a sudden here he is being dragged into a cell, and he didn't look injured at all. I guess he got better. A wizard did it.
Got better.
This is the episode where we find out who Bertha is. Was it worth it? It really was not worth it. In episode 11 of Reign, which is called Inquisition, which no one expected, we have the big question: is King Henri II of France going to execute Catherine de Medici, his wife, and the mother of his 10 children? Spoiler alert because of history, no, that's not what happens. Catherine de Medici ends up outliving Mary Queen of Scots by 2 years. I mean, if Mary had just kept her hands off the whole Babington plot thing and accepted her retirement in England, she would have probably outlived Catherine. I know Alan. You know, with Alan, I think sometimes he hears me talking and he thinks I'm upset about something. So he meows and he asks, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm fine, baby. I'm fine. Do you want to come sit on my lap? A perfectly good lap right here. The plastic bag or my lap. Choose." And he chose the lap. I'm the only one whose lap he'll actually sit in, like, willingly. He doesn't really like sitting in anyone else's. Mary and Bassie are still looking after the baby that was born in the last episode. And they're trying to basically get the baby away from the castle. Okay, at the start of the episode, they're checking on the mark on the baby's foot, which gives away the fact that the baby has pagan roots. And luckily, the mark is fading. They think, oh, just give it a few more days. The mark will heal, we can send the baby to a convent, and all will be well. And that is when they find out that the king has returned from Rome, and he has Medicis with him, so Catherine's family. The Medicis, they're basically like, they've come right out of The Godfather. They are so clearly right out of The Godfather. The woman of them looks like she came straight out of the theatre scene in part 3. And they're very morbid in a way. So they show up and they comfort Catherine with some good food, and they bring some nice things into her room. And the other thing they bring in is a block, as in an execution block, because they say if things don't go well, you can try practicing laying your head on it. And I just thought, you've clearly, yeah. Because they even reference that, oh, they say Henry VIII's wives practice laying their head on the block before their execution, just in case. And I was just like, sir, only one of them actually lay their head on the block. The other one, not a single drop of blood fell on the block, because she was executed with a sword, which was how the French beheaded their condemned until the guillotine was invented. Sir. Anyway, they say that Henri was not able to get an annulment from the Pope because the Pope cannot approve of Bassie's claim to the throne as a bastard, when Elizabeth Tudor, who has a claim to the throne of England, is considered a bastard by the Church of Rome. But, you know, when has hypocrisy ever stopped the Catholic Church? So Henri decides, fine, I'm going to take a page out of Henry VIII's book and I'm going to accuse my wife of adultery. And Catherine's like, that is ridiculous. Who are they accusing me of being adulterous with? And then we cut to Nostradamus being dragged into a cell. And they mention nothing about how he was shanked a couple episodes ago. Guy comes along, what's his name? Richard Delacroix, who is the friend of King Henry, is the High Inquisitor for the whole adultery case. And he is first introduced with Henri, and they're trying to convince Kenna to testify against Catherine. Well, they're training her to testify against Catherine on the stand, and in exchange they'll fix Kenna up with a good husband. And she's like, okay. Well, Mary and Bassie's main concern throughout this episode is making sure that the baby is taken to the convent and is safe, and no one suspects that she has any connection to the pagans or Bassie. So when they find out that the Medicis are around at court and Catherine is able to move about freely again, they pretend that the mark is actually a burn mark and the burn will heal, and then they cart her off. But just as the baby's leaving, Catherine says, "Oh, what a lovely baby," and then she deliberately pulls away the bandage to see the mark, and she is going to get the Medicis to get the baby and show Bassie's connections with heresy. You don't really see what the methods of these Medicis are, but they can't be good given the ominous music surrounding them and the fact that they look like they've come out of The Godfather. The nursemaid that was looking after the baby in the palace, or in the castle, is interrogated by the Medicis on the rack, and when Mary and Bassie find this out, they ride with all haste to the mother of the nursemaid who is looking after the baby now before taking her to a convent. They get there and they manage to clean the mark off the baby, but the Medicis are close behind, so they can't just leave with the baby. They go and hide in the storage cupboard. There's a bit where the men stab inside the cupboard, and Bassie kicks over a bag of grain to make it look like they've just cut into a bag of grain. And oddly enough, it's shown that they just about snicked Bassie's arm, and you can see they cut him. But when he pulls out the sword, there's no blood on the sword. PG-13 saves us all. So they leave with the baby, and then when they bring the baby to Catherine looks at the foot, there is no mark anymore, and then she's like, oh, damn. But to her credit, she doesn't decide, oh, do whatever you want with it. She just says, oh, just take it to a convent. So she's basically lost that battle, but she's not about to lose the war. And this is when we start to learn about Bertha. Okay, so I doubt Catherine even noticed Bertha moving about for the past several episodes. Earlier in this episode, Catherine went to speak to these artistic society which she sponsors. She says, while this investigation is going through, no funding will be lost to this thing that I support. And then she's later walking through it and she sees Bertha running through. She's still got the bag on her head, and then she grabs her and be like, who are you?
You're going to get what you deserve. You and Nostradamus.
Who are you, ghost? Why are you here? Come out into the light.
So we can all see you!
And then she realises, oh, all those stories of the castle ghosts, they're actually true. And she goes to confront Nostradamus about this. Nostradamus is wearing a purple shirt. He should not be wearing a purple shirt. He is not a royal. He does not deserve to wear purple. He is not noble enough. And Nostradamus explains Bertha's backstory. Basically, his father was given this baby who had a massive purple birthmark on her face. And he was told by the parents, big air quotes parents, to find a way to get rid of the birthmark, and this is a time before laser surgery, so that is impossible. But Nostradamus' father tried anyway, and it ended up leaving the child's face all deformed and shit. So he handed the baby off to a family who kept a secret, but she was picked on mercilessly by the village in which Nostradamus lived, and he felt responsible for her. So he gave her the freedom of roaming around in the corridors of the castle. She's basically his ward, and Catherine is deeply shocked by this news. And then we find out later the guards have taken the baby back to the castle, and Bassie and Mary are learning about Catherine's past. We learn that during the first 10 years of Catherine de Medici's marriage, where she couldn't have any children with Henri, she took a lover. And then from that lover, she got pregnant. And then she ordered her servants to be quiet about the whole thing. She threatened them to be quiet. And she gave birth to the child. And the child had a birthmark on her face. And then when the story is repeated to Henri later on, Henri demands that Richard Delacroix's face be shaven, and Richard Delacroix has a birthmark on his face. And it's just like, gotcha, bitch! If anyone's wondering, some birthmarks are hereditary. Like, they're kind that there's like sort of, that looks like a purple stain. Those things can be hereditary. So I actually did have to look that up just to make sure they weren't bullshitting me. Yes, so it turns out Catherine is actually guilty of adultery.
Oh shit! Oh shit!
Catherine, with one last ditch effort, tries to out Diane and Sebastian as pagans, and she has this ornament that was in Diane's rooms and she smashes it on the floor, reveals something inside that has their pagan iconography, and she says, these guards are your guards. They saw me take it from Diane's rooms. They will testify. And oh god, this next scene, like, remember, I'm just going to remind you that Bassie and Mary are watching this entire scene. Henri goes right up to one of the guards and says, you saw the Queen take this? And he's like, yes. And you will testify it? And he says, I would tell the truth. And he just gets his sword and he just thwacks him across the face with it. This is why you join a union. And I was like going, oh my god! I actually jumped back. Like, this is PG-13, the TV equivalent of PG-13, so seeing something that gory, they were clearly holding back from some really gory stuff just to get away with that one really gory bit. And obviously I was a bit too busy reacting to that scene alone to notice Bassie and Mary's reaction, but obviously I saw the screenshots later. It's kind of funny in context because obviously Mary grabs her neck, like she's like, oh god, and I was just like, yeah, like, well, can you wait 30 years and that will be you? And of course in Bassie it's his reaction is like, oh god. Torrance Coombs' other most famous role as Thomas Culpepper, that's how he died, is just like, oh, we relate to this somehow. Obviously that was huge. That was just like, oh fucking hell. The other guard pretty much just looks the other way and starts whistling.
You don't need to teach me how rumors work. I know it. And I know the time to quash them is when they're still in the seed.
You're letting your lust for England blind you!
I've had a lot of time to think about that, well before England became a possibility. As it happens, Diane chose to share her secret with me. It took some years for her to trust me. I'm glad she did. She wanted to put her past behind her, to have a new life with me. I'd hoped once the same might be true with you, that you could put your family behind you and we'd grow closer. But every year shows me how deep your Medici blood goes.
You wouldn't have minded my Medici blood if the hurt of my betrayal wasn't stinging you right now.
Catherine is taken back to her rooms. There is an early scene where Catherine begged Henri to let go of his greed for England, because obviously this is the whole thing that's motivating him to try and get rid of Catherine and get Mary married to one of his sons, any of his sons. He doesn't care as long as he can get England. He tells her that he always felt obligation from her, he never felt true passion for her, and there is a bit where they kiss and they actually do sleep together, and it's almost quite a nice scene. But the fact that he still wants to go forward with executing her, especially when he finds out about the existence of an illegitimate child, is a deal breaker. But the scene where they end up kissing and it almost looks like they're going to make up, it made me wonder, like, does this happen all the time? It would be kind of funny every week in a sitcom sort of sense, that every now and then it looks as if Henri is going to execute his wife and they end up kissing and making up. It's just like this dramatically toxic relationship, but it's also funny at the same time. Anyway, that was an awesome scene. Like, it was very stupid, but it was so awesome. There is nothing much to say about the other Marys in this episode because they didn't really do much. There is a bit where Germaine comes and tells Mary what happened to the nursemaid in the castle who was stretched on a rack. And anyway, it looks like that Catherine is pretty much screwed. She's going to be executed, and the Medicis give Catherine some poison to take a more dignified exit out, and they leave. And then that evening Mary prepares for her bath and she goes and sits in the bath, and Catherine looks at the poison that the Medicis gave her and she puts it aside, I think. Let me have a look. She puts the poison aside and she opens this other box and she looks in the mirror all determinedly, and then second Mary gets in the bath, Catherine, who is now all made up and looking glamorous, walks into Mary's room where she's having her bath and says, oh, don't worry about me. And then she's clearly up to something and Mary's very unnerved, and the second Catherine gets close enough to the bathwater, she throws the contents of what's in that little silver box into the water and it starts bubbling. It creates this noxious gas that's going to kill both of them. And Catherine basically is trying to go out in a murder-suicide. She holds a knife to Mary's throat so she won't move and whispers in her ear. And the second Catherine passes out, that is when Bertha comes in and opens the window to let the gas out, and she shakes Catherine awake again and she calls her mother. And obviously that's, I mean, we all knew that, but this is the first time we see Bertha's face. And this is why you have ladies in waiting, because ladies in waiting are supposed to protect you from this sort of thing. I looked at Bertha's face. Obviously you were supposed to play it this whole, she is absolutely hideous, terrifying to look at. I mean, she's scary as fuck, but have you seen the organ that she has down in the basement? It's awesome. I was like, really? That's what she looks like? Very much 2004 Phantom of the Opera prosthetics here. But Catherine's too terrified of Bertha to do anything, to run, basically to hide. And then Bertha makes a run for it when she hears people coming, and then Bassie comes in, and Mary, who did pass out, she went underwater and started drowning. Bassie pulls her out of the bath and the guards take Catherine away.
You're there trying to kill me.
Take her away. Chain her up like the animal she is.
You should have left France while you had the chance. He's a man with secrets. You've made a choice that will be your ruin.
I know who he is. And I have made the perfect choice. Because together we have killed you.
If that had been, like, the season finale, that would have really worked. Although Catherine is right, Mary Queen of Scots does not make good decisions when it comes to men. It would have made an interesting season finale. It would have been a lot more interesting than the ending of Becoming Elizabeth, let me tell you. Yeah, and that's the episode. It was pretty damn cool. Maybe when I get to the end of season 1, I'll like rank all the episodes from like my least favourite to most favourite. But this one is definitely one of the more interesting ones. So as I get to the halfway point of the first season of Reign, I kind of think this series is absolutely ridiculous. But in a way, it's almost so bad it's good. I'm not seeing anything maddeningly sickening like what happened with Thomas Seymour and Elizabeth in Becoming Elizabeth. And we definitely have a lot of amazing acting performances. People are actually interested in this, because I don't think I could get through it if they didn't actually cast actors who could act. Like, if we were in the same situation here as we were with CBS Titanic, where they cast a shit ton of actors who couldn't act, and like one or two that actually could, like Tim Curry and Catherine Zeta-Jones, then I would absolutely hate this series, and you would hear so many crazy rants about it, just going on and on and on. And while the first episode was really, really stupid, I've really come to sort of just enjoy the insanity of it. Obviously, I'm never going to say I really like the show, but I just enjoy the insanity. And at least when it comes to the really heavy subjects, like the girls being threatened with sexual assault in episode 7, they at least understood the gravity of these situations. And while the girls that are more sexually active, like Mary and Kenna, they go and have premarital sex or extramarital affairs, they aren't demonised for it. They're not slut-shamed. I'm not feeling the same sort of contempt for female sexuality like I got in season 2 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Jesus Christ. Oh, Joss Whedon, I really don't miss him. This whole getting Catherine executed and shit is ultimately going to be very pointless, but I do really like the intensity of it all. And I'm really actually looking forward to seeing how much crazier it gets, because we've got 3.5 more seasons to go. How crazy can it get? How much can they draw this stuff out? How many weird plots can they bring up and then discard? See, maybe they wouldn't have this problem if they hadn't tried to base it all on history, if they just made up a fantasy land. I don't think I realised that Reign was actually about Mary, Queen of Scots, until I saw the first Tudor rant by Laughing Cavalier. Because I thought that this was just a fantasy series that I didn't know about, that I didn't see, that passed me by and I didn't notice. I did not know it was about Mary Queen of Scots, because by the fashions alone I never would have guessed. I thought this was just a fantasy series about these 4 or 5 girls living in a castle and doing stuff. If this had just been a fantasy series, I would have been fine with it, but the fact that it's based on history is just like, you have to make all of this shit up and then you have to drop it all. Even if you're not going to stick true to most of history, you gotta at least acknowledge that these things happen. So Francois is going to die, and Henri is going to probably be dead by the end of the season, and Catherine is going to be the Queen Regent of France for 2 of her sons, and she's going to outlive Mary Queen of Scots by 2 years, and Sebastian never existed. Anyway, onwards and upwards, let's see what the next 11 episodes have in store. I hope I've managed to edit and prepare the other 11 episodes for everyone by the time this goes live on YouTube, because I don't know how far in the future that's going to be. It's probably December by now. But thank you for watching anyway, and obviously Duke and Duchess and King and Queen patrons, as I've said repeatedly throughout these videos, they get early access to my videos. So if you want to see the next 11 episodes, if they are available, then you can become a patron in one of those 2 tiers and you can see them. Obviously there are 2 other tiers below them and they get scripts, and even a Lord and Lady patron gets their name in the credits at least, and they see weekly updates of how I've progressed with my work. So thank you for listening or watching, and I hope that you enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see what insanity we get. And thank you to my King and Queen patrons. Before I forget, thank you Alison Cuff, Larissa, Lady Eternal, Leslie Williams and Jill Minero. And if you want to help support the channel but you can't really afford to become a patron, you can always subscribe to the channel and leave a like on the video. Make sure it gets spread around a lot more, because if YouTube realises that these videos have gained interest, then they will promote my channel and recommend it a lot more. So I'll see you for the next 11 episodes of Reign and the second half of season 1.